All right. I think I'm going to add this to my video about the 12 names for the Feast of Trumpets, but it's already long enough and I don't know if people would end up seeing this, so I might do this as a side thing here. But yeah, this video by Supernatural by Design. I don't know if you can see that there, but that's the name of the channel, and there's spaces between the words here. And the name of the video is Proving Revelation 12 Sign. It's about to get supernatural by design. And it's a pretty good video. And it actually lines up with what I was thinking and saying in a previous video where I was talking about narrowing down the year. Yes, recently I talked about how Abraham, having his covenant at the age of 75, when it was 2023 years after the fall of Adam, kind of lines up with Israel, where Abraham was born in 1948 from the fall of Adam. Israel comes as a nation in 1948. 75 years later, 2023, covenant, marriage, as in marriage of the Christian church with Jesus. At the same time, the Antichrist comes with a bow, which represents a covenant, and we got the 7-year tribulation starting, right? So, uh, yeah, I mean, it lines up a little bit. So you think this year, but I always thought the earliest it could happen was 2024, and it was partly because of what this fella shows, or he shows a depiction of um, the the signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and he's showing that what it looks like is the abomination of desolation happens about 2029, right when uh, Israel is going to be about 80 years old, or right before they're 81, right? And I was saying, yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, I think that's when that could be, because Jesus talks about the abomination of desolation, that that generation will not pass until they see this, right? And I was like, hey, so they have to at least live until that point. So maybe that's when that happens, right? When they're about 80 years old at the end of a generation, 70 to 80 years old, right? Like, okay, so what would be 3.5 years before that? Well, you got 2028, 2027, almost went forward for some reason, 2026, and then halfway before that, half a year before that would be the actual fall of 2025, right? And that would be at the Feast of Tabernacles. I didn't mean tabernacles, I meant to say trumpets. Sometimes I get those mixed up, both with a T, and they're right in the same month. So I meant to say the Feast of Trumpets 2025, right? And I was saying, like, at the earliest, if we looked at when Israel turns 80, that would be 2028. So that would move it back a year to 2024. So I was like, that's the earliest it could be. And the latest it could be is if Israel was established in 1949, which would push it a bit further. And I was saying the latest would be around 2026 sometime. And if it doesn't happen in that couple of years there, 2024, 25, 26, then I'm way off and I don't know what's going on. I'm clueless, right? And this video lines up with that. But again, I can be wrong. This fella can be wrong in the way he's seeing things, and maybe it has lined up with uh, Abraham. So one of the things I would do is 2 witnesses, and I was already thinking about this. Uh, and the thing is that it looks like there's a couple witnesses for both sides here. You see, with the Abraham, being born in 1948 from the fall of Adam, and then 75 years later, 2023, from the fall of Adam, he made a covenant with God. Then we line that up with Israel today, right? Born 1948, 75 here in the year 2023. Perhaps this is when the covenant happens. Okay. That's one witness. Do we have anything else that collaborates with that? Well, there actually is. I don't know if it's necessarily a trustworthy witness, but it seems to be. And that is that in 70 AD, when Jerusalem was destroyed and the temple was destroyed, the Sanhedrin and their writings talked about, for 40 years up until that point, things were going weird in the temple, such as the temple doors that were so big that it took 7 people to move them would just be opened. When they locked them at night, they were opened in the morning. And whenever they had the feast to cast lots for the scapegoat would always be on the left hand, and the scarlet thread would never turn white to show that your sins have been blotted out. For those 40 years, there was all kinds of things going on like that. So you would think, okay, what happened that caused that? Well, for 40 years, that would mean in 30 AD would be when Jesus was crucified. And there's a third witness as well. I looked at Stellarium to see if I could find the Star of Bethlehem. And that seems to line up with about 3 BC, roughly. And that would mean that at 30 AD is when Jesus would be about 33 and a half years old. So that lines up, right? That it's been 2,000 years since Jesus rose from the dead. And that's the latter days, the last 2 days. 1,000 years is as a day. Those are the final 2 days of this week here. And yeah, right? There's something to that. But then on the flip side here, with what he's saying, it does seem to line up with Matthew 24. This generation shall not pass until they see these things. So the abomination of desolation could happen at the 80th year, right? Then we have a witness. I think he actually brings up in this video. He talks about how Tiberius, I think, was in his 15th year when Jesus was crucified, and they look back at the dates of that, and this was in 32 AD, around there. And then he was showing that at that time there was a lunar eclipse at the time of Passover. I don't know if that explains how the sun was darkened during the full moon, but yeah, something weird happened there, definitely. And yeah, so it seems like there is some witnesses to back up this claim as well. So it's like, what do you do there? What do you do? Well, I'll tell you what I do. I change things a little bit. Looking at the new information, the earliest the rapture could happen is this year at the Feast of Trumpets, which is just little more than a week away. That's the earliest it could happen. And then the latest would be still about 2026. But if it's 32 AD when Jesus was crucified, well, that changes things, because that would be 7 years from 2032. So that would be what? Let's count that backwards. 31, 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25. So it's between now and 2025. But then we can push it to the end of 2022, right when it's before it's going to be 2023. So that can push it to where it's almost 2026. So I would still, maybe by 2026, should be before then, but it could be as soon as a couple weeks from now. I believe most likely we'll be raptured on the Feast of Trumpets. If not at the Feast of Trumpets, it would be at the Feast of Shavuot. I don't think any of the other feasts match up, because you got to match up with not only it depicting a rapture event, but also you have to take in consideration, okay, what if you start there and then you did 3.5 years? Would that line up at a point where, hey, yeah, this makes sense that the Antichrist is going to say that he's God in the temple, right? And then in 3.5 years, does it make sense that Jesus is going to return at this time? Right? So you got to take things into consideration with all that. But who knows? Who knows, right? Just kind of looking at the puzzle pieces, trying to figure it out. And all I could say is it looks like it's in the next 3 years. Between now and 3 years from now, roughly. After that, I have no idea. I can't make sense of it after that. After that, I have no idea what I'm talking about. It didn't happen. I can't tell you. I can try to do what a lot of people do and make sense of how it could be the next year, but as of right now, I can't make any sense of it going past 2026. But again, what do I know? Right? So, with all that being said, thanks for watching. Thanks for hearing me out. Feel free to give me your 2 cents, whether you agree, you disagree, or you got something else to show connected to this. I'll hear you out. Just hope you do it in a reasonable manner. Some people they get pretty upset pretty quick. So not all the time, but I guess just the internet, and you can't read people's demeanor through text. So you kind of sometimes can take things the wrong way. Like if somebody simply said, "Well, I don't believe you," you could take it as I just said it. Oh, okay, he doesn't believe me. But then it can be like, "I don't believe you," and you could take it as in, "Shut up, go away," right? That my tone is telling you back off, right? So it depends how you read what is being said and how that works. But anyway, thanks again for watching. Take care. All right, here's the 3 verses that I like to put in all the videos here. Isaiah 34:16, seek ye out the book of the Lord and read, so that Jesus doesn't tell you what he tells the Sadducees here in Matthew 22:29, ye do err, not knowing the scriptures. It's not that you err in error because you don't know the one true church that happens to be your denomination, or that you don't know the fundamental beliefs, or the Nicene Creed, the Apostles' Creed, or whatever creed, or that you don't know the magisterium or the clergy, or you don't know your favorite pastor or priest. That's why you're in error. No, you're in error because you don't know the scriptures. You need the scriptures to test to see whether or not those are correct, whether those are the right traditions, whether those are legitimate clergy, whether that church is actually following God, and whether those creeds line up. Those fundamental beliefs are found in the scriptures. Because knowing the scriptures is knowing God. Like we read here in John 17:3, Jesus says, "And this is life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom thou hast sent." This is a deep knowing. As Adam knew Eve and she conceived, you need to know God in like manner, so that you may be born again, that his word, his seed, it abides in your heart, where you truly believe that Jesus Christ is God in the flesh, that he died in your place and gives you his life in exchange, so that your righteousness, your good and your bad, your life, past, present, and future, died 2,000 years ago. Your life is his. He can do what he wants with it. He puts it to death, and he gives you his life in exchange, his perfect, eternal life. That's the deep knowing you need to know of God. So, there you go. Do you know Him? Do you want to know Him? You get to know Him. Thanks again for watching. Take care.
That fella couldn't join the church. He couldn't join the church. He couldn't get baptized. He couldn't get baptized. He woke up with God. He woke up with the devil. Are you saved? Amen. So that fella didn't take the sacraments. Didn't take the sacraments. Didn't say the rosary. Didn't say the rosary. Didn't tithe. Didn't tithe. He went to heaven. He went to hell. You saved? Didn't keep the law. He didn't keep the law. He broke the commandments. He broke the commandments. He didn't keep the golden rule. He didn't keep the golden rule. He woke up in glory. He woke up in the pit. Are you saved? You're saved. If you're not saved, you're over here or you're over here. You sure ain't in the middle. He said, Lord, remember me, thou comest thy kingdom. And Jesus turned to him and said, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be saved. It's like that. You have been saved? If you ever saved, you were saved like that.